In 2012, after 44 years of business, Sound One, in the Brill Building at 1619 Broadway, possibly the most successful post-production facility in New York's history, closed its doors. What caused the demise of Sound One is a point of contention between the clients, former owners, founders, and staff, who hold multiple theories about why it failed. Some blame a distant holding company in Denver, who was out of touch with the needs of the local community in New York, and undermined Sound One's business practices, which required creative and financial flexibility to maintain its base of both established and upcoming filmmakers. Others cite a long process of chipping away at the character of Sound One over a period of time during which the company was bought and sold 5 times to various entities. Here, former staff and clients explain in their own words how the end of Sound One came to be, and how in its wake, new pools of talent and multiple post-production facilities emerged. The voices in the Rebirth episode include former Sound One studio manager Jay Rubin, chief engineer Avi Laniado, picture editors Tim Squires and Andy Monchine, supervising sound editors Phil Stockton and Stuart Stanley, former Sound One managing director Jonathan Porath, re-recording mixers Tom Fleischman and Mel Zellniker, and ADR mixer Bobby Johansson. This Frame by Frame podcast is one of a multi-part series on the era of New York's Sound One. Frame by Frame is presented by Motion Picture Editors Guild and Post New York Alliance because it's how you finish that counts. Our website is postnewyork.org and we can be found on Twitter at @postny. The host for the Sound One episode is Harbor Picture Company.
Sound One closed September 12th, 2012, and I started September 19th, 1979, so it was really strange. But it was Jim Gardner and Alan Hale and I were the last men standing, closing the place down. It was sad.
When they closed their doors very abruptly and everyone scattered, it was kind of a shock. You know, all of a sudden there were all these other facilities that either came into existence or started to grow, and you never knew, where's Avi working now?
Yeah.
I'm not even sure.
And we were in LA working on Life of Pi when that happened.
That happened.
And we kind of got the call and kind of went like, what?
What now?
We felt it was like a death. It was like
Yeah.
it was like hearing your uncle was in a car accident and didn't make it or something.
There was a power struggle because there was Tadeo, there was Sound One, and there was Sound Deluxe, and they were all vying to be the king of the hill. They all wanted the position to be in charge of this entity, and Sound Deluxe was the one that won that battle. The guy who was under Sound Deluxe, I guess, was Liberty Live Wire.
A lot of the people left, and then it basically became Live Wire, and the whole sound part of Live Wire they gave to the Sound Deluxe guys. But what happened, they bought all the sound companies and all the video companies, but all the good ones and the bad ones. So within a year, they had to close all the bad ones. Sound One had some actually very, very good years. Unfortunately, some of the other facilities didn't have good times, and then they started squeezing us, and especially after Bill died, it was just not fun anymore because it didn't matter. I remember there was one year that we did incredibly well, and we worked towards the end of the year, and everybody worked like a dog and stuff like that. And then they said, well, no bonuses this year because all the other companies did bad. And we're the only company that did well. And Jay, you remember we had to have a client pay for the Christmas party and bonus. We had to do some stuff. And we all personally got into trouble doing stuff to try and keep the momentum. And that's when it started going down.
I knew right then when 54th Street closed. And whatever they sold it for, they got from the landlord, 11 million, 14 million, I don't really know the number. I knew when they didn't give us any money, this was 2007, when they didn't give us any money to retool. Remember we said we wanted a presence downtown because we all knew that's where people were going. And then in 2008, we told them not. In 2000, we told them not to renew all our leases at the Brill. We wanted to have a presence downtown. And when they didn't give us any money and they renewed all our leases at 208 in 2008 for all 5 floors, I knew it was over then.
Somewhere around 2003 or something like that, our leases were going to end. And we found out that also Broadway Video's leases were going to end. And we devised a thing that we would we were the biggest tenants in the building. We had like 6 floors, and they had 3, so we were 90% of the building, and we agreed between us and Broadway Video that we would really kind of put pressure on the landlord. Either we're all leaving next year, or you give us a 10-year. And that's when the real estate wasn't so good in New York, so we could have gotten a great deal. And we went back to Denver and we said, this would be great, because we're so invested here. We can't really go downtown, but if we could lower our rent and have a 10-year, we could really survive this thing. And they said, no way. And that's when I knew the writing was on the wall.
You're right, the handwriting was on the wall by the middle of 2004.
Right. We knew, Mel, right before you left and business was slow and we were thinking about, unfortunately had these meetings about who do you let go, who do you not. And Mel said, look, I'm leaving, I'm retiring. Mel saved a couple of people,
There was a moment there they came to us and they said, we need to take a 10% cut from everybody in the company. And I looked at them and I said, guys, you serious? He said, everybody needs 10%. I said, well, we have 10 mixers and they all have contracts, so we really can't do that with the mixers. And the rest of the people work with the union, and, we have a great union contract, and in the end of the day, we just negotiated a great union contract. We can't do that. So it leaves Sybil, John Pearson, Kurt, they were like, and the cleaning guys, These are the guys who make the least amount of money and really, really need the money. And by the time the 10% across this company of almost 85 people, it's going to be maybe $10,000. We spend more on coffee every week. Is this really what you want to do? Well, can't you make it happen? I said, no, you can't. That's not how it works in New York. And that's kind of when you realize the stupidity of them. They just didn't get what was going on in New York.
When we got to Sound One the day they closed, I remember going up to the 8th floor. Everyone was sort of locked out. I remember Avi and everyone, codes weren't working, and I put up my pass, and the door clicked open. I had an all-access pass, but I wasn't one of the Sound One employees. I guess that code wasn't erased, and everyone scrambled in to get their stuff. I grabbed my drives from my table. I was working on Blue Bloods. I grabbed my drives, and I went home. And on the way home, stopped off at 47th Street Photo, whatever it is, put more hard drives and clone my stuff because I didn't know what was going to happen. We were in the middle of a mix. We were absolutely in the middle of a mix of Blue Bloods. Andy Chris went to the bathroom because they allowed us 1 week to mix. CBS got all involved because they didn't want it to shut down. Andy Chris went to the bathroom, came back to the bathroom, and the studio was locked again by the guys who were shutting things down. We had to get them to open the door again so we can finish our mix. We wound up at Soundtrack for 2 weeks, but that didn't work out well for some reason or other with CBS and Soundtrack. And Andy Chris worked it out that we would go over to Goldcrest. And Goldcrest was very accommodating to us. They built us a new ADR stage, and they moved their color correct studio upstairs and built a re-recording stage for us downstairs at Goldcrest. And we stayed there for about 2.5 years. They treated us very well, and that was very nice, very comfortable there. And then Andy went over to Warner Brothers. They gave him a new offer and actually made another re-recording studio for Andy there. And Blue Bloods is now there. So my career stint on Blue Bloods went from Sound One to Soundtrack to Goldcrest too. So I've sort of been around the...
When Sound One, we just all got the notice, we're closing in a week. I knew 3 weeks later I had 5 months of a huge Ken Burns project to do. So I ended up going to Soundtrack, where Tommy works. But they did so much. They jumped through hoops to make everything work for me that eventually I just stayed. That is a terrific place.
After Sound One, I called Avi, found out, these guys were settling down here, and I walked this place with Zach Tucker, who's the owner of Harbor, and showed me what we could do with that ADR, where, this was just all storage. And I said, all right, here's what you do. You put your screen there, you put your control room there, you go there, because it had pillars and stuff, and they started building this thing exactly in that spec. Long story short, it was meant to be. And it's such a convenient place for actors to come and everything. Brill Building was great in its time, but, we would have De Niro and Merrill come through there and cut through the line of Chicago, which was the playing theater next door, and they'd be all frazzled because they were hassled trying to get into the building. it's that area is over, and it's just very, very relaxed and cool down here. So I love it. Actors are happy. I'm happy.
Jim and I had the task of moving Blue Bloods, showing you soundtrack. I called Sync Sound soundtrack, Goldcrest, Postworks. I called like every sound facility that I could think of, and I know most of them. And I got to tell you, the one thing was every facility that I called was trying and willing to help. I mean, they knew it was business for them, but this town was very accommodating to all of us.
One point that I realized how much Sound One meant to New York City. Toward the end, we were offered an opportunity to maybe try and take the company, if you remember. It was 5 of us, but they needed the money within 10 days, and we didn't have that kind of money. So I'm not surprised, but anyway, back then we tried to help and resurrect the company from whatever happened to it. And what we ended up doing is calling few movie makers like the Weinsteins and M. Night, who was starting his next movie, and Scott Wooden, and they all put their financial guys to try and see and study the financial reports to see if it makes sense for them to make it happen. All 3 of them together, 4 of them together, were talking to each other. But they only gave us a week to put it together. I mean, who is in his right mind?
Give us enough time for anybody.
But they really tried. They tried so
Yeah,
much.
no,
That's when I realized how much it meant to everyone.
Yeah.
It was a death in the family.
Yes.
I mean, it was a punch, a gut punch, and it happened so quickly. And you guys got, I was the last cutting room to close. We had an extra week because we were wrapping out. And, the only thing we can take from it is this sort of diaspora of everybody who's spread around town means that all of the family is still thriving.
Yeah, we got a lot of cousins all over the place.
I know, it's amazing. It's like Sound One was this, sort of Johnny Appleseed thing that sprouted so many people. But now it's spread and it's all around New York, and it's kind of amazing. I can go, and I've worked at all these different facilities. And
someone you know.
in the end, not just someone you know, someone that you grew up in this business with and have, developed a kind of New York film community that we so much wanted and that Alicia so much believed in. And it's still here. It's not gone, guys. It's just the real building part of it is. Yes, exactly. It's really amazing.
Here we go. Greatest story ever told. Come on, crazy.
This podcast series, The Sound One Era, 1968 to 2012, was co-produced by Sherry Johansson and Isabel Sidurni. The sound engineers were Bobby Johansson and Mike Rivera. Music by the Sound One All-Stars. In New York, I'm your host, Isabel Sidurni, and this is Frame by Frame.